worry about supplies, so yeah, we had everything we needed.
Did you feel pressured at all or under any stress?
After getting out of boot camp and I had combat training, no. Then after that, it was, at least in peacetime, it was pretty much a job that was about the size of it. We did have to go back out and requalify on the range once a year as far as rifle training and accuracy was concerned. We had to keep our weight down, and we obviously had to stand in parades and what have you for inspection. But other than that, after boot camp and combat training, it was pretty much what I would call civilian life now.
Yeah. Was there something special you did for good luck?
Nope, didn't have to. I wasn't worried about dying other than under atomic bombs and that incident that I mentioned in the combat training where the machine guns were live fire.
um, how did people entertain themselves?
Again, after we got out of boot camp combat training, it was pretty much civilian life on base. We had an enlisted club where we could go and get some pizza, hamburgers, beer, or Coke, or whatever we wanted after work if we didn't eat or if we wanted something other than going to the chow hall. There was a theater on base. There was exercise places on base, libraries. So it was pretty much again like civilian life after getting out of the training sessions.
So there's probably no entertainers.
No, we didn't see any entertainers while I was on that particular base.
Okay. What did you do when you left?
Well, being young and dumb, for the most part, I came home when I had a leave of a couple of weeks or what have you. So I would basically, the, I think I got home twice during the 3 years I was there. Although in my younger years I was raised in Pomona. The folks moved to Pomona, California, which wasn't too terribly far from Santa Ana, and we left in 1950 and I was back in 56, so I still had some grade school friends I occasionally visited, and I also had an aunt and uncle that lived in Pomona, and I'd occasionally get to visit with them as well on weekends.
Okay. Um, do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events?
Not anything, shall I say, different than what I've already gone through.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Hmm?
We're good.
Okay.
Um, what were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
Weren't too many pranks in boot camp or combat training while we were on the USS Boxer. As I'd mentioned, it was a World War II ship at that time. And the toilets were not individual, and they weren't in stalls per se, but they were just basically troughs with seats on them at intervals, and they would pump seawater in one end and it would flow down and go out the other. And if we had some newspapers and somebody was reading or not paying any attention, we'd sometimes light the newspapers, toss them in, and let it float down under them and singe a little short hairs.
Okay. Uh, do you have any photographs?
No, I don't. I don't remember where they would be if I still have them, other than we had a boot camp annuals, and I've got that around someplace. I'm not sure where it is in a box right now.
Okay. What did you think of your officers or fellow soldiers?
Our officers and the air wing of the Marine Corps, and I think this is probably true of all of the services, were very nice guys because they were relying on enlisted to keep the planes in the air. So they weren't going to be giving us a bad time that you might otherwise get from some of the some of the other officers, and I presume combat officers might be the same way. You hear occasionally, of course, I wasn't in combat, but some officers who were not the best liked sometimes had problems with friendly fire.
Did you keep a personal diary?
I did not.
I could have said that one. Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah, that was kind of unusual, I guess, thinking about it, in that I got out a little early because at the time they were trying to downsize the service, and there was a program in the Marine Corps where if you were enrolled in college, you could get out a little early. So I got out on Friday the 13th, March 13th, 1959. And I, for some reason, had my uniform on, but a friend of mine who was a little black guy from Atlanta had gotten into civilian clothes, and he needed a lift to the train depot so he could go home. And because he was in civilian clothes and we were no longer active duty, he couldn't get a discount for a train fare home. So we left for a while, went back and went to a different cashier's stand, and I went up and I got the ticket for him. And for whatever reason, and I don't remember, the ticket master asked where I was going. I said Atlanta. He said something to the effect that you don't sound like you're from down south, and I fed him a line about my parent being assigned down south after I entered the service. And then he asked the address, and I gave him some address on Peachtree Street in Atlanta, which is a rather exclusive area. And this poor black guy, and this is before the civil rights started, went nuts. He said, Peachtree Street. He says, everybody, no, I don't live on Peachtree Street. That's where the rich white folk live. And so I commiserated with him, and I finally told him to tell him that your father was a butler in one of the mansions, and I don't know what happened. I lost track of him after that.
That was nice of you to help him. What did you do in the days and weeks afterwards?
Well, I had enlisted, the college I had enlisted, or not enlisted in, enrolled in, was California State Polytechnic at the Kellogg Voorhees campus in Pomona. So at the time I had just purchased a old car, an old coupe from one of my sergeants. So I drove to Pomona, basically got an apartment, and went to school until such time. This is for the last quarter. In the summertime, I worked out there in a nursery in a supermarket, a plant nursery, and then returned to Nebraska for the fall semester at UNL.
So, did you work or go back to school?
Well,
Both.
obviously I went back to school. I put in 4 years of undergrad, worked a year, didn't like the work. I was in an accounting department in an insurance company, and it was boring. And so I re-enrolled in school again, and got out of school then in 1967, I guess, with a Juris Doctor degree.
Was your education supported by the GI Bill?
No, when I enlisted at age 17, I didn't have any money because we had a mini drought at the time in Nebraska. Your father, as a matter of fact, was born in February of that year, another mouth to feed. So I enlisted with the thought that I was going to get the GI Bill because everything I'd ever seen, or everybody I'd ever seen returned from World War II through Korea, all went to school on the GI Bill. I didn't ask them about the GI Bill when I enlisted. I just assumed it was in effect, but it wasn't. It had been dropped sometime after Korea. Finally, my last year of law school, I did get some GI Bill. It was $90 a month for 9 months. So that was the extent of my GI Bill. Other than that, I worked all the way through college, doing odds and end jobs, and in the summer to pay for the college and books and tuition.
Cool. Did you make any close friendships while on the surface?
With a couple of guys, I didn't keep track of them. One of them was from Utah. He was Mormon, wanted me to return to Utah and go to school with him because he planned on going to school as well when he got out. He was about as young as me. And the other one was from Indiana, and he was going to go to Ball State, and he thought maybe I should go to Indiana and go to Ball State with him, but I didn't do either of those.
So you didn't keep any of those relationships?
No, for a little bit, but not now. I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him anymore.
Okay. Did you join a veterans organization?
At the time, the VFW and the other veterans organizations were basically with respect to overseas service or wartime service. I hadn't seen that, so I didn't join. Although now they've got, what do I want to say? They've got memberships and not necessarily requirement of the service, World War services anyway, or war services in order to join. But I never joined any. No.
Okay. What did you do as a career after the war?
Well, after finishing college, as I mentioned, I had a Juris Doctor degree, and so I practiced law. The first 2 years after law school, I wasn't sure I wanted to practice law, so I went to Seattle, worked for a large farm cooperative in the finance department for a couple of years. Had an opportunity to come back to work for the Nebraska Attorney General's office in the highway acquisition department. Worked there for a year, and then I got a call from the gentleman who was in the county attorney's office at that time in Kearney, inviting me out to take a look, and I moved to Kearney, and I've been here since, I guess, spring of 1970.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the war or about the military in general?
I think if I was to run the world, I would probably have everybody who was qualified and had the right, I would qualify as far as physical condition is concerned, serve in some capacity on behalf of either the military or, let's say, Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, or something. I learned a lot. I grew up a lot faster by being in the service, and I respect anybody in the military. Although right now, with the administration that we have and the way they're fighting the wars, I don't know that I would enlist again. We haven't fought a war to win it since World War II. We got the UN involved, and they just want to work into a general peace agreement, shall we say. We don't accomplish anything. The only thing we do is lose a lot of American lives, and of course, other allies' lives, as well as a lot of civilian lives on the other end of things as well.
If in a veterans organization, what kind of activities does your post or association have?
Again, I don't belong to any, and we didn't have any reunions like some of the World War II and or Korean vets, because I wasn't in service. I'm in war service.
Okay. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
As I said, it helped me grow up a lot faster, gave me a little bit better perspective on life, and it helped all the way around. Let's just put it that way. I don't regret having been 3 years in the Marine Corps.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't go over in this interview?
I can't think of anything right now anyway, if that's... Nope, I think that's it.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Uncle Gary.
So did we get your half hour in?